Want to bring in congressional reporter for Axios, Kate Santaliz, who has been following the twists and turns of this right along with me. I mean, I thought a few things were notable yesterday about the way that Cornyn set the stage with me in the morning. He directly laid it at the feet of the president at one point, saying he could fix this in a minute. I know that him and Tillis continue pointing to maybe he's getting bad advice or maybe someone at DOJ is not agreeing to this deal. And ultimately, the problem, as I understood it yesterday, is that they don't want to put this in writing. But the president could fix this in a minute, right?
Yeah, just as Cornyn said to you, he thinks that the president could just immediately come to a deal on this and bring everyone together and get Blanche through the Judiciary Committee. It's important to note that Todd Blanche, in his confirmation hearing, committed that this weaponization fund would be dead, that the IRS settlement would no longer be allowed as part of this deal. And all Senators Cornyn and Tillis want is for this to be in writing.
Which lawyers love to put things in writing.
Yes, exactly. So it's become a little bit complicated after Blanche said that this is a moot point. It clearly didn't turn out to be a moot point, and it's not clear how they're going to resolve this if President Trump is insisting that he's not willing to cave here on this.
And again, the idea of why is the president willing to sacrifice confirming his attorney general to a permanent role in the name of keeping himself immune from future IRS entanglements? I mean, I think that does speak volumes here. But the other thing that I think is notable is the way that Cornyn intimated that he and Tillis are the ones who are out front because politically they can do that. They're not coming back in large part because of Trump, but they're not coming back regardless. It seems that there are others who have this concern, which makes sense because politically it's not a great look.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think Cornyn and Tillis have really embraced this YOLO caucus. You know, they're not as afraid of political retribution from this White House as other GOP lawmakers are. But there are other senators who have concerns. And just a month ago, this weaponization fund almost killed their bill to fund ICE and Border Patrol, which is broadly popular among the party. So this is not a new issue. We've seen this come up time and time again. And we've seen other GOP senators express concerns, like Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski. So even if Trump decides to wait out Cornyn and Tillis eventually retiring in a couple months, I don't think this problem is going to go away from him.
Exactly. I mean, he can keep. These are the rules. I mean, Todd Blanche can be acting AG for 210 days. The clock can restart whenever he returns to the acting, role once the nomination is pulled. They can do that. That's within the rules. But I also think that there's something interesting here that Trump is basically saying out loud, I'm happy to just skip these people if they disagree with me, and we'll come back to it later when the conditions are more favorable. That can't, I mean, he's basically playing the same game effectively when it comes to the SAVE Act and all of these other priorities. And I wonder what it says for Republicans that the president is now out there saying, it's fine, I'll just wait until you're gone.
Right. I mean, and that's exactly right. Trump needs the Senate if he wants to get anything else passed in the next few months. I mean, we keep continually seeing him demanding that they gut the filibuster to pass the Save America Act. John Thune has made very clear that he does not have the votes to do that. The support is not there in the Senate. We saw a new senator yesterday, John Cornyn, come out and say that he's not in support of gutting the filibuster. And Trump also wants to get this reconciliation bill through Congress to fund his Iran war effort. So he needs these senators on his side, and he's going to have to make some sort of deal if he wants to get anything done in the next 5 months.
We talked about the YOLO caucus. The L, I know that when we say YOLO is you only live once. What does the L mean to you, though? Because to me, it has been leverage. And I think we've yet to see senators actually put their votes where their talk has been, right? There have been senators willing to criticize this White House, but they've ultimately fallen in line. And I wonder if this is YOLO from a live perspective or YOLO from a leverage perspective.
I think leverage is exactly right. I mean, we've seen these senators try and push the administration to go more in their direction. But you're right, we haven't really seen them take any votes that are directly against this administration. I mean, when it comes to things like war powers, that has not fully passed the Senate. We saw Senator Bill Cassidy, he had a conversation with the White House after initially voting for it and then flipped his position. So I think that's right. They're using their position as sort of free agents to extract some concessions from the White House, but they're not actually putting it when it comes to voting.
We're going to see what we see. I was a bit more convinced about you only live once from Cornyn yesterday when he told me I am prepared to vote no. It was the clearest that I had heard him on that. But you're right to talk about these schisms within the Republican Party and the ways that people are willing to be crosswise with the president. It might be why President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, actually made a rare appearance on the Hill this week. This is according to Politico, that she huddled privately with top Senate Republicans on Wednesday to discuss several stalled items on the president's agenda. It includes what we just talked about, his controversial voter ID bill, the Save America Act, as well as as a third budget package. News of that meeting came amid brewing tensions between Trump and his Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, the midterms, of course, looming over all of it. It's worth noting that John Cornyn told Politico Thune said the meeting with Wiles was about the reconciliation bill and not the stalled nomination of Todd Blanche as AG. But what does it say that Susie is going up to the Hill, huddling with Barrasso and Thune specifically, who has taken arrows from the president, from the White House press secretary at the podium? I mean, it's clear that there is frustration. And the reason I say that is because you and I know John Thune, and he does not vent frustration or anger publicly. And he has been, in his way, saying things that are pointed, that are sharp toward the administration.
That's exactly right. I mean, it hasn't been a great week for John Thune in terms of his relationship from the White House. We've seen some critical remarks from the White House, like you mentioned. But again, I think the most important point is that Thune does have the backing of his conference. And that's what's most important. And he said yesterday, President Trump doesn't vote in our internal elections. So President Trump can continue to put pressure on Thune to gut the filibuster. He can continue to say, it's not me, I don't have the votes, you need 50 votes to do that. So it remains to be clear exactly how Thune is going to navigate the situation, but he has the support of his conference. There are a few loud voices, but mostly everyone backs him.
I think that's exactly right. He knows what it takes to keep his members and the full breadth of his conference on board, and he has a wide range of them. It is the now YOLO members, but it's also Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, to your more conservative Mike Lee's, and Thune understands the way that he's balancing that, and he derives his power from them as opposed to the speaker, who derives power more from the president holding his conference in line. It's a fascinating balancing act. We're going to see what we see next week. Congressional reporter for Axios, Kate Santaliz, rest up. I'll see you in the scrums up there.
Thank you.